Hey guys, my name is Nick Harrison. You can find me on Instagram at Leather and Wood USA. Today I'm going to be building this fairly basic end table out of sapele and hard maple. Stick around. For this project I used a large slab of sapele that I had in my shop and cut it down to rough dimensions, rough length over at the miter saw. Next, I joint one edge over at the joiner. After one edge has been jointed, I set my table saw fence to about 2 inches and cut down a bunch of little strips. These strips of sapele will make the top of this end table. Now I begin gluing the strips together. I'm using butcher block fashion, if you will, just gluing edges to edges so that the edge grain of the long grain is facing up. I clamp on some cawls on each side just to keep this tabletop square, straight, and flush. While that glue is drying, I head over to the joiner again with some maple and begin jointing the edges of that. And then of course over to the planer to get everything planed down to where it's parallel and even on both sides. Now I begin laminating 2 pieces of maple together, and I do this 3 times. So I have a total of 6 boards of maple. I clamp them all in the same clamp up and let that glue dry. These will become the table legs. After the glue dries, over to the joiner to joint one face to make sure I have a straight edge to reference off of in the next step. I then go over to my table saw and begin cutting down 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches pieces out of this maple. Again, that will become the legs of the table. Then I square up and true up the ends of the legs and also cut them down to the correct measurement. And then I find center, make my lines, make my depth notes and marks. This will become a cross lap joint for the bottom support of the legs. So then I remove my table saw blade, I install some dado stack blades, and get ready to make those dado cuts in the bottom of my table leg support pieces. Here I am making those dadoed cuts. I just go pass by pass, slowly creeping up on my line, on my mark that I made. Then I apply some glue into both sides of the joint, spread it around, and fit those 2 pieces together to make, like I mentioned, a cross lap joint. After they're fitted together nicely, I put 1 clamp in the center and let that glue dry. Checking for square at this point is a good idea before the glue completely dries. After the glue dries, I glue on the legs on 1 piece of the support piece. As you can see here, I'll let that glue dry. While that's drying, I begin sanding down my sapele top. I do this with my belt sander, scraping off all the glue squeeze out first and then going back and forth sanding it. I just need a semi-flat surface that I can reference off of with my router here in a second when I cut out the circle. I mark center of my piece, note the location of that, hammer in my router circle jig that I made here out of MDF and begin cutting out my circle with my router and a straight cutting bit. I go little by little here. You don't want to lower your bit all the way into the wood. Just maybe go 3/8 of an inch or a little less for each pass, slowly creeping up on that. I'm not going to be able to cut all the way through this piece, but I just want a good starting point that I can clean up later. After the router's done, I cut out the excess over at my bandsaw. Again, not perfect, just looking to cut the majority. Here's where I make it perfect, over at the router table with a flush cutting bit. The bearing rides along the top part, which is a perfect circle that I made with my router a minute ago, and the bottom part is trimmed up by the router bit here. Then I put a round over on the top side, of the table. Next, I note the center of my table again and trace out to where my legs will be, and I drill in some holes here for a dowel to be installed just for alignment on keeping this whole tabletop together. And I drill those holes in the ends of the legs too, so that the other half of that dowel can be installed in there. Glue everything up and put it into clamps. Now I begin sanding. I start at 80 grit and really take my time here. This takes quite a while for this project, just to get all those pieces of the long grain Sapele flush to each other. So I start at 80 grit, sand the entire project, then I work up to 100, 120, 150, 220, all the way through the grits. Again, this takes quite a while. Now that I've sanded everything, I begin applying some finish. I went with tung oil again because I think it makes everything pop very nicely. So I applied it very liberally in a flood coat fashion and massaged it into the wood fibers, be sure to cover every square inch of this project. All right guys, this table is now complete. I personally think it turned out great. It was fairly simple to build, fairly quick to build, just with letting glue dry. Everything combined, me working a full-time job, this thing took me about 4 days to make, so not terrible. And again, I think it turned out great. You can find this project and more on my website. Link will be down below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of my future uploaded videos. Also, give this video a thumbs up down below. Leave a comment if you feel like it. Follow me over on Instagram at Leather and Wood USA. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll enjoy some of my other videos, and I have a couple of those queued up for you right here.